thought last night was great for the program, for two guys to get drafted, Primo to go 12th. We've got back-to-back years of the lottery pick now and guards, and so certainly going to help in recruiting. I'm really fired up for Primo and his family. They trusted us, and we told them we're going to do everything we could to get him in the best situation possible. I think he was supposed to be a senior in high school last year, so he reclassified up. He's the youngest kid in the draft, ends up going 12th. He couldn't have gone much better for him. And then you look at a guy like Herb Jones that really did everything we asked him to do, put the betterment of the team ahead of himself, and it paid off. People recognize it in the NBA. He ended up, 35th to a great organization. He's going to get to reunite with Kyra, which is great. I mean, he's close. We'll be able to make some trips down there. So I'm really happy for him. And then a little bit disappointed Petty didn't get drafted, but he had a knee injury that kind of kept him out of a lot of workouts this spring, so he wasn't able to really play his way into it. So, I talked to his agent last night and again this morning. He's going to play summer league with Detroit and then, with a chance to play his way into a two-way contract. And, he'll be in camp with somebody with a, he's just going to have to play his way in. He's one of the better shooters in the country, just unfortunate with some injuries this spring, but really looking forward to all three of those guys trying to make a roster here this fall on some NBA team. So great night for our program. Really excited for those kids and their families, and can't say enough about the work that those two, and that's the other thing. You look at the work that those two put in, talking about Primo and Herb, and, those are probably the two hardest working kids on the team, and just kind of shows you, and it shows the rest of their teammates that are still here, like, that hard work does pay off. All those times that Primo was in the gym and he really came in here and treated himself like a professional, and Herb did the same thing, and now they're going to be able to fulfill a lifelong dream of theirs to play in the NBA. So really happy for those two guys.
Thank you, Coach. We'll go ahead and start with questions. Let's first go to Michael Casagrande.
Yeah, Nate, do you play any golf this summer?
You know what? I got the hole in one. You didn't see that, Michael?
I did.
Okay, I was just making sure. Yeah, I haven't played much since then. I'm just that good. I'm natural at it. I can get a hole in one without playing that often.
Yeah, congrats. Just wanted to ask you about Petty. You talked about his knee injury. What happened with that? And if there's more detail you can give on that situation.
Well, you know what? He had a knee injury. He went to Chicago to train with his agent. He got up there. He had a knee injury. They had to get a rehab. Then he actually had two deaths in the family. So his grandmother passed. He had to come back home. Kind of had to take time away from the rehab. Went back up. He just never could quite get it right. He came down here. If you looked at the combine, all he did was do the shooting stuff because he wasn't healthy enough to go live. So he was a guy that after the season had ended, he needed to have some really good workouts in the spring to play his way into getting drafted. And, we thought he could be, Herbert ended up early second. We thought Petty could end up anywhere from early second to mid-second in there. And he just, you got to play well in those, you got to play well in the combine. He wasn't able to play in that. You got to play well in some workouts. And he just, due to the injury, he just wasn't able to do so. So unfortunate for him. But you know what? Sometimes it's not the worst. If you look at, there's no guaranteed contracts in the second round. So if you don't get drafted, you can pick which team you want to go to. The Pistons have been high on him since last summer. I mean, they were, and I know a couple of those scouts, and I know people in the front office, and, I spent 11 years in Detroit, and I've talked to a couple of them just this week. So, they were high on him last summer when he put his name in, so they stayed on him. They're high on him. Now he was able to pick the team he goes to. He's going to play summer league. If he can really play well in the summer league, and I think he's back healthy, he got down here and worked with Clark, our trainer, a little bit these last couple of weeks. And, hopefully he stays healthy for the summer league and plays well and can play his way into a two-way contract and see what happens from there.
Let's go to Drew DeArmond.
Yeah, Coach, I wanted to ask you really quickly about your system and how it's developing guys for the NBA. And to piggyback off that, to talk about guys that have a chance to, like a Keon Ellis, Jahvon Quinerly, now Namari Burnett, guys that maybe the last two that didn't start off that well in their college careers, but have gotten to Alabama and been a fit and talk about how big it is for your program to be able to develop players and how it helps in recruiting.
Yeah, I think our system, we play really fast, wide open, space the floor well, take a lot of threes. So it's kind of goes back to my philosophy in high school. I spent a lot of time in the gym on player development, and if I'm going to get up and work guys out at 6 a.m. every day before school and work them out after school, like, we're not going to turn them into robots when they get on the floor. And I think if you watch the way the NBA is playing now, there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of freedom, there's a lot of space. Guys are using their athleticism, and then if you watch us play, it looks the same way. That there's space on the floor, guys are able to be creative, they're able to get downhill. So then guys want to get in the gym and work on their game. If they know that what they're working on, at 6 o'clock this morning, 7 o'clock this morning in the gym is going to be able to be used in the game, they're a lot more likely to work on it. So we feel like, and we felt like since we've got here 2 years ago till now, the culture's changed dramatically in that the work outside of the required work is much, much higher. And that's the only way you're going to get better. I mean, they give you 4 hours a week in the summer. If these players plan on getting to be a pro working 4 hours a week in the summer, they're out of their minds. Like, they've got to be in the gym all the time. Well, if what they work on in the gym can be used on the floor, they're going to really be able to stay in the gym. So I think, and then we do, all summer long, we're not really doing a whole lot of defense and teams. So we're doing a lot of skill development, making reads, getting guys great, just making hundreds and hundreds of reads and driving kick situations, pick and roll situations, like all that type of stuff with us. So I felt like I kind of made my name in player development as a high school coach, and that still resonates with me. Now that I'm in college, I still want to be a big player development guy. I think that's getting your players developed is as important as anything else in coaching. So I think having 2 lottery picks, having guys that maybe went somewhere else, didn't do as well, come here and do well, kind of speaks to the fact that we are going to make you better. We're going to give you the freedom to show what you work on. We're going to give you a ton of confidence to play the way you look at Primo. He didn't play great all year, but we stuck with him. As a matter of fact, when we put him in the starting lineup, he maybe wasn't playing that great. Like, we kind of, part of the reason we stuck him in the starting lineup was to pump him full of confidence and get him going, and then it paid off. You look at the start he had at Auburn, that was an unbelievable start. That was a kid playing with a ton of confidence, not that far off from having some bad games. So just believing in him and him knowing that we believed in him, we're going to try to do that. But they got to put the work in. If they're not putting the work in, it's going to be really hard to have true confidence. So we've got a lot of guys that are putting work in now, and I think seeing Herb and Primo get drafted, I think it's going to help these guys realize that work's going to pay off.
Let's go next to Jeff McDonald of the San Antonio Express-News.
Hi, Coach. I cover the Spurs over here in San Antonio. Just was wondering what you make of Primo's sort of meteoric rise-up draft boards. Even he was telling us last night when he declared, they were telling him he was going to be a second-rounder. So I was wondering what you make of that and sort of what you saw from him from the start of his freshman year towards the end that led you to believe he could be a first-round pick.
Yeah, I think part of the meteoric rise is, he's the youngest kid in the draft. He's got kind of the measurables, his length, his wingspan, his height, his size. He's got a good body. All that stuff measured well. He shoots the ball at a high level. And then there's literally no red flags around the kid. Everybody in our program that's gotten to know the kid, like, he's the most polite, respectful. He came into this program. He's supposed to have been a senior in high school this last year. So he came in a year early, and he had, not in a bad way, but he had one thing on his mind. He wanted to make it to the NBA. But not to the detriment of putting himself above the team. The team was always, whatever the team needed to do, whatever he needed to do for the team to win, he was willing to do. But he acted like a pro from the time he got in here, from his nutrition to his weight program to his work with our trainer. Like, he wanted to be a pro. He treated himself like a pro, but he did it all within the grand scheme of, let's make this the best team we can be. So when he didn't start, he only started 19 games. I think we had 33 games. He started 19 of them, so just over half. When he didn't start, he was fine. He never complained, none of that. So I just think, when his teams look to draft players and they start to look at the stuff that they can see, and then they start to make all the calls, and they're calling myself, assistants, girls in the office, trainers, our nutrition lady, and they're everybody's saying what a great kid he is. So to me, and I've been a big basketball fan my whole life, you think of the Spurs and you think about some of the best organizations in all of professional athletics. They come to mind immediately, with just the high character people that they bring into there. So, and I've known Dave Tellup since he was a high school scout. So me and Dave had a couple long talks, and they loved him. I reiterated the fact I think he's going to be great. And I don't know how much he's going to help this year. I don't know. He's so young, but he's going to be really, really good in the near future. I hope he's able to contribute a decent amount this year, but he's the kid that there's no red flags that's going to deter him from reaching his potential. He's going to reach his potential because he's just going to put his head down, work, and do what he's supposed to do. So I think that helped with the meteoric rise. Now, from when he walked in till now, again, he's in a high major Division I program, so he got his body right. Not that it was bad when he came in, but he treated all that stuff great. And then just with the basketball play, when he came in, he was more of an off guard. We tried to turn him into a combo, let him make a ton of reads, play with the ball in his hand, let him play point last summer, fall. And then, he still wasn't comfortable being a point guard. So we needed him to get his confidence back up. So we kind of slid him a little bit more off the ball, got his confidence back up. He started making shots, and then he played great for us this year. I mean, in some of those wins we had, he was as good as anybody we had on the floor. And to do that he was 17 years old playing games for us. He didn't turn 18 until December 24th. So I think the rise you saw from when he got here is just going to keep going up when he gets, to that level and he's able to work against pros every day and work with everybody they have every day.
Next question will be from Cecil Hurt.
Coach, Herb in some ways was the opposite of guy who was here when you got here. But for the teams that called, the teams that inquired about Herb, sort of take us through how you explained what his value was, and it wasn't just looking at how many points he scored, but at all the other things that he was able to do.
Yeah, the NBA, every NBA team's got an analytics department now. So some of the analytics they look at, the real raw ones that are easy that show up on a normal box score now would be like plus minus stuff. Well, Herb was usually really high in the plus minus category. Well, then you look in, why is that the case? Well, I think he's really easy to play with on offensive end. He creates for others. He gets in the paint. He may not even get an assist off it. He may be the one that created the double team, kicked the ball out, somebody else hit one more pass, and they get the assist, but he's really the one that created the offense. So you look at his leverage numbers, we were better with him in the game on the offensive end. We were better with him in the game on the defensive end. His junior year, we were way better when he was in the game on the defensive end, but I think being healthy for most of the year showed that he's got an offensive game to go with it, and then everybody in the league recognized it. That's why the coaches all voted him player of the year, even though if you look at his numbers, there's a lot of people in this league scored more points than him, people had more assists, people had more of this, more of that, but nobody put the whole package together as well as Herb did. And then obviously, what can you contribute to winning? Well, we went 16-2 in the league. So then you look at who's the best player on the team that wins 16-2, and why is it? And this is one of the best leagues in the country. So to go 16 and we were the only high major team to win regular season and conference tournament. So you start to look at why were we winning at such a high level? Who was the most important piece to the winning? And Herb Jones just kept coming up. I mean, when your best player plays through injury, when your best player is the most coachable kid on the team, when your best player is the best teammate on the team, when you go down the list of all of the intangibles and just what he brought to the table, that's somebody that professional teams want on their roster. Is he going to be a starter right out of the gate? Probably not, but I think he's a rotation player that could have been a rotation player on a playoff team in the NBA this year. I mean, I watched tons of NBA games. He can play in that league, and I think he's going to play in that league for a long time. I think he's going to do whatever it takes to make his mark on the team that he's on, and he's going to be a great professional. He's going to be really, really good in his role.
All right, next
Did
question.
you?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Cecil. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just a quick follow up. As some other guys were getting drafted, did you sit there, because I kind of did you sit there and say, well, Herb guarded him, Herb guarded him, Herb guarded
Yeah,
him?
100%. I mean, there was a bunch of guys that went ahead of him that Herb's a lot better than. So, I mean, I saw the quote from Trajan Langdon. They were ecstatic he was there at 35. Yeah, I would have been too, because a bunch of the guys drafted 10 to 15 picks ahead of him, he's a better player than them, and he's going to contribute more to winning, and he's going to help, and he's going to help the Pelicans more than some of the guys that got drafted ahead of him are going to help the teams that they're on. So, yeah, 100%. I think that's the case, and I think that's why New Orleans was so excited he was sitting there at 35. I mean, he should have been a first-round pick, but, he's on a team. I don't think – I talked to Herb earlier in the day, and we always talk about control what you can control. At this point, you can't control where you're going to get drafted. So, and I had that conversation with all three of those guys. Control what you can control. You've put the work in. With Petty, it was like it's unfortunate you were injured, but whatever you end up with, you're going to end up with a chance to play your way in. So Herb, it was like control what you can control. If you end up in the first round, great. If not, you're going to end up on a roster. You're going to get drafted, and let's just go do it. You've been proving it your whole life. So, yeah, I definitely was looking at some of those players drafted at him like with a little curious look. Like Herb definitely is better than him. He's better than him. He's better than him.
All right, next question, Mike Rodak.
Yeah, kind of the opposite of Primo. I think Quinerly is going to be playing for you this year as a 23-year-old. Just were you surprised he didn't put his name in this year? And just what can he do this year to kind of get himself ready for the NBA next year? Yeah,
you know what? I talked to him and his parents both. I think they're in a great frame of mind. I think they're really well-grounded. And they had gotten enough feedback around people in basketball they trusted that they knew. So a lot of times these guys that put their name in, some of them, they need true feedback to see what they need to work on. But a lot of times, I don't know if it's for the right reason. So I think it's just another proof that Jahvon's really grown up. His family's, he's about making us better. He's about getting himself better. And he felt like he had some unfinished business here. And I think, and he wasn't going to get drafted if he went in. So why go through the process if you know what you need to work, he's just got to get better at stuff, and we talked, and it wasn't like we didn't get feedback as a staff. We got feedback when we talked to, and we've talked to every NBA team. We had three guys, Primo, Jones, and Petty, that they looked really hard at. Well, Quinerly's name came up a lot, so we talked to them about Quinerly, about Shackleford. Like, we got feedback on the guys on our team, Keon Ellis. So, we got feedback from the guys, and we gave him the feedback, and he kind of knew what the feedback was. He's not dumb, and he's older. So here's the thing with him. It's not if and when he gets drafted next year, it's going to be how can he immediately help an NBA team right now. Primo, it's a little bit more the youngest kid in the draft. What can we project him out to be, years down the road, 2-3 years, whatever it is down the road. Quinerly, it's going to be like, can you walk in and run a team today? So that's where we got to get him to over the next year. Can he walk in and run a team? Maybe not the starting point guard, but can you be the backup point guard or starter, depending on the team, today, right now? If that's the case, then he's going to get drafted. So, he'll be a little bit older, but he's not too old to draft. He's just got to help a team immediately.
All right, we got two more questions, so we're going to finish with these two. First, Scott, and then we'll finish with AP. So, Scott, go ahead with your question.
Nate, you got obviously an NBA-friendly system going, practice scheme, the entire way you go about things. How do you try to balance now, because you've obviously got an influx of talent coming in too, these guys and supporting an NBA dream like you were talking about with Primo, but then also not at the expense of team? You talked about Josh being that kind of guy and that kind of mentality. Is that a recruiting thing on the front end, or what do you do?
Yeah, I do think you're right. I think our system, you look at all the analytics, the style of play. I mean, you watch us, you watch the NBA. We play as close to anybody in college basketball to what the NBA is playing now, and I think the NBA teams recognize it. I think that the recruits that really study basketball, the ones that take a deep dive, and we help them take a deep dive as much as possible, recognize it. So I think it helps the players get to where they want to get. Now, I've always said we want this to be a players program. I don't want to put myself ahead of the players. I don't want the assistants. I don't want anybody. And it's hard in college because I get to stay here, hopefully for a long time. Okay, and the players come in, leave, and me and the staff are constants here. So, you get a little bit more attention as a coach maybe in college, but I don't ever want it to be about me or the staff. It needs to be about them. Let's make the players better. And then we've made this statement numerous times. Just do what's right by the player, and it'll work itself out. Now, you got to do what's right by the player in the context of the team. You can't put one player above the rest of the team. So I think trying to make the players realize that when the team wins, we've got a saying, when the tide rises, all the boats rise. Well, the tide rose pretty high last year around here, and all the boats, Primo, Petty, Herb Jones, they all rose with it. Quinerly, Keon Ellis on draft boards now for next year. So we're going to keep reiterating that with our guys that, look, I don't think Primo goes 12th to an organization like the Spurs if we didn't have the success that we had as a team last year. Part of them drafting him at 12 is he contributed to winning. They're a winning organization that wants players that are more concerned with winning than they are about their individual stats. And if you look at Primo's individual stats, while they were solid, they weren't ridiculous. There was other freshmen in our league that had way better individual stats that either didn't get drafted or got drafted much further back than Primo did. So I think that's a great selling point too. There's a lot of things that happened last night that help us build the culture we want to build around here.
All right, go ahead, AP, with your question.
Hey, good morning, Coach. Congratulations on the draft.
Thank you.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about the name, image, and likeness in relationship to recruiting, because basketball players, men, can get to the pros much earlier. Does that come up? Is that much of a factor in the recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, because people are asking about it. Thing is, we're not allowed to set any of them up. We've got players on the team that have gotten them. It'll get out, obviously, football players have done well here. I think the guys that have the bigger names, and again, it's name, image, likeness. So if you got a bigger name, and you've got a name that companies and corporations want to associate with, you're going to have bigger opportunities to profit off that. Some of our bigger name guys have been careful. I think they've been smart with what they're associating themselves with. Some of them taking them, but they're not just jumping on every little, they don't want to nickel and dime themselves out of having a good name. So I think you'll see more and more of it. But yeah, we'll use it in recruiting to a point, but it's a violation for us to say, if you come here, you're going to get this. No, we can't do any of that. What you can do is, when they ask about it, yeah, we've gotten, Jahvon was able to do this. JD was able to do this. Such and such was able to do this. They've got, and if you come in here and do what you're supposed to, then there's going to be opportunities for you to be ahead as well.
Coach, you got time for one last question?
Sure. Yeah, I got time for one.
Go ahead, Tony, with your question.
Hey, thanks, Nate. Just I wanted to know what went into the decision with Jaden Shackleford. What went into that discussion, and what do you see from him going forward? I know he's pretty motivated to be in this draft at this point next year as well.
Yeah, I think he's really motivated to be in the draft. He's had 2 really good years in college. He was one that put his name in, got feedback, had a workout. Had some interviews with teams and gave him feedback. And we're going to try to help him get better at the stuff that they said he needed to get better at. Him going in the portal, I think that was one of those deals where he and his family really wanted to make sure that he was in the best situation for him to get to where he wants to get to. So was it at Alabama? Was there something else? I think they needed to have peace of mind that staying at Alabama was, in fact, the best situation for him to achieve his goals. So and I'm not going to shy away from the fact that you got to re-recruit your guys in today's day and age. It's the age that we live in. If you look at all the high major teams in the country, 95% plus lost a player, multiple shoot. Some of the teams lost 9-10 players to the portal. we didn't lose any. All right, it was us, Michigan, and UCLA are the only 3 teams in high major basketball that didn't lose one player to the portal. So I think that speaks to what we're doing. And if he took some calls from some other schools and looked at them and realized that this is the best spot, maybe that says a lot, because he did look at some options, and we knew that he did. And I made 3 trips out to California, so we did recruit him back here hard. I think that we've got the best system for him. I think he's comfortable here. I think his teammates love him. I think he wanted to be here. I just think he needed to be assured that this was the best spot for him. Between myself and Coach Petway and Coach Hodgson, who made a visit out there, we made sure that he knew that we wanted to help him achieve his goals. And so that's going to be it. Now, again, there's no promises. You got to come in here. You got to play. You got to do the work you're supposed to. You got to get better at the stuff that they said you need to get better at. And hopefully after another year in our system, he's able to prove that he's good enough to play in that league and he can get himself there. And we've got, next year's draft, hopefully we got multiple guys going in the first round or multiple guys getting drafted and, more people that we were able to touch and help are able to achieve their dreams next year.